Get ready for it.
Nishino Akane wakes up in the morning and takes a shower. After that, she gets prepared for school and a personal driver takes her to it. There, she is greeted by most students. However, she sees the one she despises, Kagenu. She greets him and he greets her back, but calls her Nishimura. She tells Kagenu that her name isn't Nishimura and Kagenu apologizes, stating he was pretty good at remembering named NPC, but lately haven't got much sleep, and calls her Nishitani. She gets annoyed and corrects him, revealing her actual name, but Kagenu again gets it wrong and calls her Nishimura as he leaves. Akane notes that she doesn't despise him for getting her name wrong, but for never looking at her, and even when his eyes are facing her direction, they seems to be looking at somewhere far off place. When Akane was in middle school, she had to take a break from show business due to a scandal. Since then, she has been hiding behind a mask. She plays the teacher's pet so that the teachers like her, and plays the popular girl so that students like her, and is very careful to make sure no one hates her. After school, she calls her driver, but he doesn't pick up as he was attacked by some men. As he didn't came to pick her up, Akane is forced to head home walking, which is her first time doing it since the incident from middle school. On her way, she is kidnapped by the men that beat the driver. While she loses consciousness, she sees Kagenu approaching. Later, Akane wakes up tied in some warehouse. The kidnapper tells her that the daughter of Nishino Zaibatsu shouldn't walk alone at night. The other kidnapper tells her that she just needs to stay there, and once they get the ransom, she will be freed. Outside, Kagenu observes the kidnapper and changes clothes and puts on a mask. The kidnapper wants to have some fun with Akane and notes that this should be her second kidnapping and that the first time was some stalker. Kagenu then comes down from the roof window, saying he is a stylish ruffian slayer. The kidnapper pulls out a gun, but Kagenu throws a piece of glass, injuring his arm and disarming him. He then charges the guy and throws him to the ground and smashes his face. The other kidnapper sees that Kagenu isn't an ordinary man and states he was bored doing those kidnappings with amateurs. He notes he is former military and takes out a knife and attacks Kagenu. Using crowbars, Kagenu manages to disarm the man, but still gets overwhelmed. He then decides to get serious and show him the potential he found in crowbars as he fought bikers. The man then realizes he is Balaclava Berserker, a man who has been fighting the bikers with crowbars. Kagenu notes that the bikers started wearing helmets, so he had to stop using the crowbars like tonfa and instead use them as regular clubs. Kagenu then proceeds and breaks the man's leg and beats him up. Kagenu then frees Akane and tells her to be more careful next time. Akane then calls the police, and her father uses his connections to make the case not go public. Next day, Akane goes to school. She sees Kagenu and greets him, and he greets her back, calling her Nishino. She is ready to correct him, but realizes he got her name right and this time feels he is looking at her. She then felt he is also living a life behind a mask. The next morning, the news report that Minoru Kagenu got hit by a truck and didn't survive. Kagenu doesn't remember since when, but he always dreamed of being a hero. He spent his days training. While at school, he was a background character. He reached a point where he can beat up some guys, but when surrounded by armed men, he doesn't stand a chance. If he becomes the best martial artist in the world, he may be able to beat those men too, but he still won't be able to do anything about a missile. Kagenu wants to overcome those limits. After being hit by a truck, Kagenu is reborn in a new world. He forms an organization, and with his squad, they are about to start an operation. He also had obtained a new power, magic. Kagenu wants to be the one who operates from the shadows, showing everyone their greatness. The Eminence in Shadow. Alpha reports to Sid, telling him that everything he said is true and that she found mentions in ancient texts of what they believed is Cult of Diablos. After dying in a car incident, Minoru Kagenu gets reborn as the son of Baron Kagenu, an aristocrat living out in the boonies. He quickly understands the situation and feels there is magic in the air. The Kagenu family has been making dark knights who can enhance their abilities using magic. The family has big hopes for Claire Kagenu, Sid's older sister, who is quite talented. Sid grows up staying as a background character and doesn't draw any attention to him. However, at night, he comes out and fight bandits. Using his slime sword, he easily kills the bandits and takes their gold and treasures. He also finds a cage with some rotting creature, realizing it's possessed and that it's magical overloaded. He takes interest in it and takes it home, where he shoots it with magic and do other experiments on it. After a month, he finally manages to contain the magical overload. The creature then returns to its normal form, a young beautiful elf. Wondering what to do, Sid decides to put on an act. As the elf awakens, Sid states he broke her curse that has been put on Hero's descendants. He shows her a fiction book about 3 heroes who defeated Diablos and tells her it's actually a true story, and in his dying breath, the demon put a curse on them. He then explains that the cult of Diablos are plotting to revive the demon. While most people had forgotten about Diablos, Sid works in the shadows to stop the cult. He introduces himself as Shadow, he who lurks in the shadow and hunts shadows. Sid asks her if she would join him, and having lost everything, she agrees and explains they need to find more Hero's descendants and expand their organization. Sid agrees and names their organization Shadow Garden and the girl, Alpha. 3 years pass and Sid is now 13 years old. He practices with his sister, and while he can defeat her easily, he acts weak and lets her defeat him. Claire is now 15 years old, and at that age, the nobles start attending the Migger Academy for Dark Knights. On the day Claire had to departure for the academy, she disappeared and her room is a mess. In those 3 years, Alpha had collected more members for their organization. Sid asks Beta where is Alpha, and Beta explains she is looking for clue to finding Claire. Beta explains that Claire is likely still alive and was kidnapped by a high-ranking member belonging to the cult of Diablos. The cult probably believes that Claire is one of the hero's descendants. Beta takes out a map and states they have few known hideouts, but don't know in which one they keep Claire. Sid makes a slime knife and throws it at the map. He ends up missing the hideout, but states they will find his sister there. Beta then figures out that the cryptograms are a bluff and there is actually a secret hideout at the location pointed by Sid. He then tells her to contact the 7 Shadows. At the hideout, Viscount Grease is holding Claire chained with magic sealing chains. He comments her father taught her good on how to fight, but Claire explains she learned all by fighting her brother. Grease then asks if he healed her when she showed signs of possession, but Claire denies it, stating there is no way he can heal her. Grease notes that for just in case, they need to look into her brother too. In that moment, Claire breaks one of the chains and injures her right arm to free herself, telling him she will kill him if they touch her brother. Grease then knocks her out, and a man comes informing him that there are intruders. Grease's men are easily cut to pieces by the 7 Shadows. Facing them, Alpha states they are Shadow Garden and their mission is to annihilate the cult of Diablos. Grease wonders how they know that name and its secrets. He attacks Alpha, but she has no troubles blocking his attacks and injures him, stating she won't kill him until they get answers from him. Seeing he is overwhelmed, Grease takes a pill that boosts his magic. He manages to push away Alpha and then breaks the floor and runs away. Alpha tells the girls there is no need to chase him as Shadow is after him, which is why they split up. Meanwhile, Shadow is lost and doesn't know where the girls went. While walking around the tunnels, he encounters Grease. He attacks Shadow, who easily blocks his attack. Shadow then notes that he has more magic power than Alpha, but doesn't know how to use it. He decides to give him some lessons and blocks his attacks. As he is done, Shadow then attacks Grease and starts cutting him, causing Grease to wonder if he ever was that overwhelmed in battle before. Grease tells him no matter how strong he is, the darkness in the world is much deeper, but Shadow states he will just dive deeper. Grease takes more pills and buffs himself even more, wanting to show Shadow that people are worthless, fragile, and powerless. Shadow manages to block his attacks, and then using large amount of magic, he cuts down Grease. As Grease falls, he notes he was powerless against the darkness, but maybe not Shadow. The next day, Claire returns home in a bad mood. Her wounds heal overnight and she departures for the academy. Sid is eager to go to the academy himself, but is fine as he has 2 more years and needs to give the girls some work. However, Alpha tells him it's time they leave him, which leaves him shocked. Alpha told Sid that Cult of Diablos is an enormous organization that runs on a global scale, and in order to fight it, they needed to split. Sid feels that's just a nice way of they telling him that they are now grown up, want their freedom, and don't want to continue playing this fighting the cult game. When Sid turns 15, he enrolls in the same school as his sister in the royal capital of Migor Kingdom. 7 months into his academy life, Sid continues to live as a background character and made friends with Skel Etel and Po Tato, other bottom-of-the-pile nobles like him. While heading to school, Skel and Po remind Sid that as he scored the worst in the test, his penalty is to confess to the most sought-after girl in school and suffer her rejection. Arriving at school, they see the girl in question, Princess Alexia Migor, who rejects another guy's confession. However, Sid is excited about it, wanting to experience such confession as a background character. That evening, he goes to confess to Alexia, shaking and muttering. He feels he'd done a great job as a background character confession. However, to his surprise, she accepts, stating she was waiting for someone like him. The rumors quickly spread and people start to wonder who is Sid and what's so great about him. Sid, Skel, and Po wonder why she accepted and guess that if she accepted Sid, even Skel and Po had a chance. Alexia then joins them at lunch, which surprises other students as that's the lower nobility section. She gets served lots of food and comments she can't eat it all. Sid then gladly starts eating her food in an attempt to make her dump him. Alexia heard that he is studying royal bush and fencing and wants to practice together. Sid states he is in the lowest sections, but Alexia explains she put a good word for him and she got him in section 1. Later, Sid joins section 1 team, where their advisor is Zinnen Griffey, the official royal fencing instructor. Sid practices with Alexia and notices that her attacks never land. She is slow and doesn't use much magic, but realizes it's because the practice is to review their strokes and counterstrokes. While he finds her technique good, he thinks it's bland. After the practice, Alexia states he has good fencing style, but hate it as it feels she is looking at herself. Alexia tells Zinnen that she is Sid's girlfriend now, who tells her that won't change the fact that she is betrothed to him, even if it's still a public secret. Sid then realizes what is going on. After that, Sid asks Alexia that she just wanted someone to help her get out of the engagement with Zinnen and chose a low-class aristocrat whom she could easily control. As she confirms, Sid states he doesn't want more attention and isn't interested in being mixed up in her problems. Alexia tells him that's a bit cold from him, as she knows he fake confessed her, since his friends easily told her everything. She tells him that if the student body learns she toyed with a young girl's heart, he will not see a peaceful day in the academy. Alexia wants to continue the boyfriend act until Zinnen gives up. Sid notes that he may not give up as it's clear Sid is out of Alexia's league. Alexia knows it, but wants to buy some time and then she will deal with it somehow. Alexia takes out and throws a gold coin. Staring at it, Sid asks her if he looks like a type that can be brought. Alexia confirms, and so does Sid. As she throws another coin, he jumps and gets it with his mouth while acting like a dog. Sid notes that his parents' allowance isn't enough to carry his Eminence in shadow operation and can't let this chance slip up. Sid decides to continue being her boyfriend and is glad that the students focus on she having a boyfriend and not him, which lets him being the background boyfriend character. In public, Alexia is prudent, but behind the scenes, she constantly badmouths Zinnen. Sid decides to not argue with her and just agrees to everything she says. Sid wonders what's so bad about Zinnen, and Alexia states it's easy to pretend to be nice. She also judges people by flaws. Zinnen doesn't have any, which is not normal for a human. While riding the train, Alexia tells Sid that he has the fencing basics, but nothing more than that, yet she can't take her eyes off him. He wonders what with her today as her fencing was unusually aggressive and sloppy. Alexia reveals she always wanted to be as good as her sister. She didn't have what her sister had and decided to become stronger by herself. They ended up calling Alexia the fencing ordinaire. It's unfortunate that Sid's fencing is ordinary like hers. However, Sid doesn't find it unfortunate and states he likes her fencing. Alexia reveals that her sister told her the same thing after she suffered humiliating defeat at the Boshin festival. But her sister couldn't understand how pathetic Alexia was feeling. Sid explains that he isn't a great person and wouldn't care if someone kills 1,000,000 people, but there are things that people find worthless. But to him, they are the most precious things in life, which is why he likes her fencing style. Alexia draws her sword and asks him what he means by that. Sid states he gets pissed off when people diss the things he likes. The train stops and Alexia leaves, telling Sid goodbye, making him guess this is the end of his unwanted relationship. Skel and Po apologize to Sid for telling everything to Alexia, but wonder how far he got with her while dating her for 2 weeks. Sid states he didn't get anywhere, which annoys them as they state they would have went all the way. At the school gate, Zenon and 2 other men stop Sid and his friends. Zinnen states Sid should know that Alexia didn't return to her dorm last night and they are investigating it as a potential kidnapping. Since Sid was the last person seen with her, he is their first suspect. As he sees more knights, Sid surrenders and realizes he is in big trouble. Alexia wakes up chained in a cell. She sees a humanoid monster in the next cell. A man then shows up, excited to get royal blood. She wonders why her blood, and the man states it's demon blood and he will resurrect the demon. Meanwhile, Sid is being beaten and interrogated about the princess location. He gets excited as he finds this such a classic minor character interrogation and decided to act properly, so they don't outshine him, and starts yelling and crying that he doesn't know anything. Zenon meets with Iris and states he feels responsible for Alexia's kidnapping. Iris wonders if Sid could have really kidnapped her. Zenon states there are evidence, but with his skill level, he shouldn't have been able to kidnap Alexia, and he believes him. Since it's been 5 days, Iris decides to release him, but orders that they keep track of him. After Sid is released, he goes home. Alpha shows up as well and explains that their organization is growing and they have been gaining more information on the cult. Sid notes to himself that the girls are visiting him time to time and is sure that they are living normal lives, but is happy that they still play his game and visit him. Alpha explains that Alexia was kidnapped by the cult due to her blood and they are investigating it. She asks him if he wants her to dispose of those that interrogated him, but Sid explains they were just doing their job. Before leaving, Alpha also tells him that Delta is here and she has been missing him. Sid sets his Eminence in Shadow Room, where he takes out an expensive wine, masterpiece paintings, antique lamp, etc., and then drinks wine while waiting. A bit later, Beta shows up. He tells her the time has come. Beta gets excited and explains that they are ready, and under Alpha's orders, they have gathered all available personnel in the capital, 114 people, a number which surprises Sid. Beta explains that they plan to launch simultaneous attacks on all sect hideouts. As she explains the girl roles, Sid stops her, giving her a letter and stating that he will be taking Delta's spot. Sid leaves his place, and the 2 knights that interrogated him wait for him and throw him Alexia's boot to frame him and kill him. Sid then drops the bodies of the 2 men that were following him and then proceeds and kills the 2 knights. The Shadow Garden then start their attack. The doctor rushes to Alexia, stating that they are coming. Alexia tries to tell him that the knights don't kill without a reason, but the man isn't afraid of the knights. He notes that he made a prototype and it should work even on a failed result as the one next to Alexia's room. As he injects the disfigured creature, it becomes much larger and stronger and kills the man. To Alexia's surprise, the monster then cuts her chains and frees her. While Alexia looks for an exit, he encounters Zenon, who explains that this is his facility and he was funding the doctor. She gets happy as she always felt he isn't right in the head. Zenon explains that with her blood and his research, he will be guaranteed the 12th seat in the Knights of the Rounds, the highest ranking knights in the order. Alexia attacks him, but she is no match for Zenon, who easily disarms her. Sid then comes and introduces himself as Shadow.
As Shadow introduces himself, Zenon recognizes him as the one that has been going after the cult, but notes he is a coward as he has been targeting only bases without the cult's core members. However, he is now facing a core member and the future 12th seat of Rounds, Zenon. As Zenon attacks Shadow, he moves behind him, placing himself between Zenon and Alexia and mocks Zenon, asking him where is this core member he spoke of. The monster had escaped above ground. After evacuating the citizens, the knight face it, but their attacks are ineffective as the monster just heals. Iris comes and inflicts a more serious wound on the monster, but it heals that too. She decides to get more serious and cuts the monster arm. However, the monster easily regenerates it. Seeing that, Iris decides to cut it to small pieces so that it won't be able to regenerate. After inflicting several wounds, Alpha comes and states she is just making her suffer. Alpha states she knows the monster pain and suffering and she will put an end to it. Alpha then attacks the monster, curing it and returning it to her original human form, a young girl. Alpha sees a pendant on her, revealing that she is Milia, Grease's daughter. Alpha then tells Iris that they are Shadow Garden and she should just stay back and enjoy the show as they deal with this situation. Xena decides to get more serious and uses more magical power, but is still easily overwhelmed by Shadow. Xenon gets angry and continues to attack Shadow, who easily blocks his attacks. Seeing the fight, Alexia is amazed by Shadow and sees that at its core, his swordplay is ordinary. It's like her ideal swordplay she dreamed when she was young. However, she could never become stronger or equally strong to her sister. Shadow slashes Xenon, who gets angry and asks him why is he hiding his identity if he is that strong. Shadow states they are Shadow Garden and they hunt in the shadows, which is the sole purpose of their existence. Annoyed, Xenon takes out some some red pills and explains that by taking them, he will awaken a new nature beyond human limitations, and if an ordinary person takes them, he will be overwhelmed by their tremendous power and die. Xenon then takes the pills and transforms, stating he is the third awakened. Having far more destructive power than before, Xenon attacks Shadow, however, he easily blocks him once again. As Shadow overwhelms Xenon, he tells him that there is no road to almightiness if you use borrowed power. He then sets a magic circle around Xenon, which surprises him how powerful it is. Shadow states there once was a man who wanted to withstand a nuclear bomb. The man then developed his muscles, honed his mind, perfected his skills, however, there were still heights he could not attain. In time, Shadow realized that if he don't want to be vaporized by a nuclear bomb, he needs to become nuclear himself. Xenon thinks he is crazy and tries slashing him, but his sword breaks as it hits Shadow. Shadow then tells him to witness his almightiness as he uses his almighty power. He then chants, "I am atomic." A huge explosion then occurs, leaving a large crater in the middle of the city. Alexia finds herself unharmed in the middle of the crater. He picks a sword and starts practicing her fencing. Iris sees her and comes down, hugging her and states she is glad that she is alive. Sometime after that, Alexia returns to school and she tells Sid of what happened. She thanks him for liking her fencing and tells him that she also finally learned to like it. They were pretending to be a couple, but now Xenon is dead. Alexia wonders if Sid wants to keep their relationship going, but Sid refuses. That shocks Alexia, who then attacks him. The spot they talk get known as people found large amount of blood there, but no bodies or missing people were found or reported. As a result, in time the case got known as one of the school's 7 mysteries, the bodiless murder. The Shadow Garden girls are excited about how powerful Shadow is and how all of their enemies will one day vanish from his light, just like Xenon. They have a report from Zeta, who found the target and will be investigating. Ida's research is also going smoothly. However, they have one issue. Someone has been pretending to be from Shadow Garden and delivering justice. They are covering their tracks well, but Gamma is sure they will catch them. Iris now knows about the cult in Shadow Garden. She knows that Xenon was a adherent of the cult, and because of that, she doesn't trust the Knight's Order. She trusts Glenn and Marco, and decides to form a new investigation team with them. Iris reveals they have found an item, but need to find someone who can decipher its functions. Meanwhile, while reading and carrying books, Sherry Barnett bumps into Sid, who is covered in blood from Alexia's attack. Skell and Poe wonder how things went with Alexia, and if Sid got at least a kiss. However, Sid tells them that they broke up and haven't done anything. Disappointed, Skell tells him that he knows a place that sells all kinds of good stuff, including something called chocolate, which they can use to give to girls and win them. As Skell and Poe are too excited, Sid accepts, as he is also curious to see what this world calls chocolate. Iris shows an artifact they found in the hideout of the cult. However, as they can't decipher it, she asks Sherry Barnett, the most brilliant mind in the kingdom, if she can decipher it. Her father, Lutheran, encourages Sherry to do it. Sherry accepts, and Iris decides to assign the Crimson Order to keep watch on them. Lutheran hears that's the new Night Order that Iris formed, and Iris confirms, and that it's a small order, but it made by people she trusts. Alexia also wishes to help, and Iris accepts. Sid, Skell, and Poe go to the store, but the line is so big that they have to wait 80 minutes for their turns. Poe is worried, as that means they will head back at dark, and he heard there was a killer going around at night. While waiting, a worker from the store asks Sid if he can come with her and answer some survey. As Sid enters the store, he feels it's like a department store from his old world, as there are many things that remind him of his world that he haven't seen elsewhere in this world. Sid is eventually taken to a throne room in a house above the store building. Sid then sees Gamma next to the throne and figures at her store. She confirms and states she recreated it from the wisdom Sid shared with them. Sid recalls telling the girls random stuff and notes that Gamma was the smartest among the girls, but also lacks athleticism. In that moment, Gamma ends up falling the stairs. Gamma invites Sid to sit on the throne, and as he sits, he feels like a king. He congratulates her and creates something like fireworks as her reward, which excites her, as the light reminds her on the light he used to save her. Sid guesses she's making money, and Gamma confirms, stating she has several franchises around the cities, and that they even use mail orders for remote areas. She shows him she has 1 million zeni as immediate disposal. Hearing that, Sid is shocked. Gamma guesses Sid game due to the incidents and the killer, who states he is from Shadow Garden. They are investigating him already and promises Sid that they will put an end to his deeds. Sid had no idea, but decides to play along and states he has some idea who it may be, as he recalls his incident with Alexia. Gamma introduces their newest member of the Numbers, and explains that Alpha acknowledged her skill. Sid tells her that he will call her if he needs her. He then tells Gamma that he wants to purchase 3 chocolate of the cheapest, but Gamma states she will give him chocolate for free from the highest quality. Sid gets happy, and while laughing with Gamma, he also steals 1 coin. Sid and his friends then rush heading home. Sid guesses that Alexia went crazy and had started killing people. Hearing something, he stops and tells his friends that he needs to poop right away and tells them to go before they see him shit himself. Skell and Poe believe that is very manly and states they won't forget him and will never tell anyone about it. Sid then goes in the back alley where he heard Alexia fighting, but is surprised to see her fighting some men who claim to be from Shadow Garden. They manage to injure her, but Sid shows up as Shadow and kills one of the men and tells the others that they will also pay for impersonating Shadow Garden. The men run and Alexia asks Shadow why is he fighting, but he tells her to stay out of it. Shadow follows the men and kills one of them. Nu then shows up and congratulates Shadow on finding them that fast and requests that he leaves the rest to her and she will get information from the remaining man. Shadow agrees and leaves. Nu then cuts the man's arm, disarming him, stating she isn't as forgiving as Shadow. Elsewhere, a man informs a knight that he lost contact to the puppet and the two other men. The knight states it's fine as they located the item they need and their priority is retrieving it. Alexia tells Iris that the killer was impersonating Shadow Garden. Alexia adds that Shadow is fighting the cult and Iris hopes that they will learn something more when the artifact gets deciphered. Alexia then asks her who she thinks is the real enemy, Shadow Garden or the cult. Iris states it's both and that she won't allow anyone to wreak havoc in the kingdom. The next day on the train for school, rumors spread that Sid had shit his pants. Skell and Poe are nervous and ask Sid if he got the chocolate from yesterday. At school, Skell gives chocolate to an upper-class woman, but the person she's engaged shows up and catches Skell and wants to have a chat with him. Poe states he won't follow Skell's footsteps and that he learned all about the girl he plans on giving chocolate. As he approaches her, she recognizes him as her stalker and yells. Sid decides to give his chocolate to the first girl he sees and be over with his background character moment. Sherry then sits next to him and he gives her the chocolate and leaves. Sherry recognizes Sid from the other day. In her room, she wonders what is the chocolate. Her father then comes in and recognizes it's chocolate and explains it's been popular lately. Sherry tells him that a boy gave it to her and her father guesses it's a present and it must have been love at first sight. He wonders what she will tell him as he must be waiting for an answer. He also tells her that study and research is important, but she also needs to learn on how to interact with others. He starts to cot, but states he has been feeling better lately and is lucky to have such a good daughter. Sherry states she is the lucky one as he adopted her.
Sherry thinks of what her father told her, that the love at first sight. She finally decides to try the chocolate and finds it really sweet. Nu disguises as a student and approaches Sid at school. She tells him that the man they caught had a powerful brainwashing that broke his mind and wasn't able to obtain any information from him. While Nu explains things, Sid is distracted and is thinking how Skell ended up signing him for a fencing tournament. Nu explains that they confirmed the presence of a named first child in the royal capital, Rex, the game of betrayal. Nu says that first child are those who maintain their sense of self despite being one of the children. Sid states he needs some time to think and leaves. At the tournament, Claire easily wins her fight. Next up is the student council president Rose Oriana versus Sid. He decides to show his 48 techniques he mastered. As their fight starts, Sid lets himself get hit and coughs fake blood, showing his secret background character techniques: spinning drill fall, bloody tornado, an unsightly defeat in the first round at the hands of an indisputable champion. The judge is about to give the win to Oriana, but Sid stops him. He continues to cause fake blood, but wishes to continue as he has 47 other techniques to show off. Sid continues to get one-shotted, but stands after each hit, wanting the fight to continue. Oriana is surprised by his determination and decides to get serious. As she attacks, the judge jumps in and saves Sid, announcing the end of the fight and Oriana as winner. The judge states it's too dangerous for Sid to continue as he lost a lot of blood. Sid protests and wants to continue as he still has 33 techniques to show off, but he is carried out. After the fight, Sid hopes he will still get a chance to show the remaining of his techniques. He is then approached by Sherry, who explains she watched his fight and he was incredible as he kept standing up. She then gives him cookies she baked as thanks and suggests they can start as friends. Sid isn't sure why she gave him cookies and what she means by starting as friends, but he accepts. She tells her father that they are going to be friends and he joins them. Sid recognizes him as an important person and notes that if he wishes to remain obscure as possible, he shouldn't be having a contact with him. After some small talk, he uses his injuries as an excuse to leave. Sherry is thinking about Sid and wonders if she should visit him since they are friends. She decides to go and talk with Alexia, who guesses that she is there to talk about the artifact, but Sherry denies it. Nervous, Sherry says she heard that Alexia is in a relationship with Sid and wonders if it's true. Alexia states they broke up, and in reality they weren't dating, but pretending to be a couple for specific reasons. Sherry gets quite happy to hear that and states she became friends with Sid the other day. She wasn't able to concentrate on her research, but now now it's glad to learn they aren't together. Sherry leaves happy, but Alexia gets frustrated. After 5 days, Sid returns to school and feels that everyone is a bit nicer to him than usual. Oriana then comes to explain the election to fill the vacancy on the student council. At the same time, a masked knight from the cult decides to start their plan. He creates a barrier around the school, but seemingly only Sid notices it. Alexia returns to school, but sees the gate is closed and that he guard is dead. Sid notices he can't use his magic. Some men then come in the room claiming to be from Shadow Garden and explaining that they are taking over the academy. Oriana decides to fight them, but realizes she can't use magic. The fake Shadow Garden members are able to use magic, and one of them easily breaks Oriana's sword. He then attempts to kill her, but Sid rushes in and pushes her away while taking the hit and then falls to the ground covered in blood. Rose wonders why he gave his life away to save her, but then guesses he loved her, which explains why he was motivated to keep standing when he fought her and why he gave his life. The terrorists then move all the students to the auditorium. Sid starts hitting his heart, and as it starts beating again, he wakes up. He reveals it was his secret technique where he stops his heart for 10 minutes but maintains regular blood flow to his brain. His magic is still obstructed, but he can use it if he narrows it to threads. Rex enters Sherry's room. He states he is from Shadow Garden, but then wonders if it was Shadow Guardian. He explains his job is to retrieve the artifact, and once he is done, he is allowed to wreak as much havoc as he wants. Rex then sees the artifact in Sherry's hands, but as he attacks her, Glenn stops him. Rex is impressed he managed to do it without magic, and Rex explains it's easy when his opponent is weaker. While Glenn and Marco keep the terrorists busy, they let Sherry run away. Sid observes the movement of the terrorists and is quite excited about the whole situation. He is annoyed they were all black as they aren't doing it properly. He decides to show up at night and snipes quite a few of them so that he makes his grand appearances easier. He notices a girl running and almost begging to be captured and realizes she is Sherry. While she moves around, Sid ends up taking out several terrorists, saving her from being captured or detected. Sherry ends up tripping on the stairs and falls, but Sid captures her. He has several things to tell her, but first asks her to remove her noisy slippers. Before reaching her father's room, Sid ends up taking out a few more terrorists. Sherry finds the book she was looking for and explains that the artifact Eye of Avaris is the one that blocks their magic. The artifact absorbs and stores the magic from any user, but it can be programmed to ignore some magical frequencies. Sherry guesses it can absorb magical traces that are too small to detect or powerful spells that exceed its capacity. However, there isn't a human capable of doing the second. Once the artifact had absorbed all it could absorb, it will release all the stored energy at once. Since all the students are in the auditorium, Sherry guesses that the artifact is somewhere nearby, and if it releases all the energy, it will blow up and kill all in the auditorium. Because of that, Sherry states her father didn't publish his findings and gave the artifact to the government for safekeeping. Sherry also explains that the artifact she was researching is used to control the Eye of Varus and store the energy for a long term. Sherry plans on using the basements and reach the auditorium. Once she is close to the Eye of Avaris, she will activate this artifact and stop the Eye of Avaris from exploding. However, she left all of her tools needed to fine-tune this artifact in her room. Sid then states he will get them for her and leaves her. Rex reports to the cult knight that some of their men had been taken out by someone skilled and guesses that Shadow Garden is here. As Rex still haven't obtained the artifact, the cult knight threatens him to go and find it or he will kill him. The cult knight notes that once his ambitions are realized, he will be reinstated in the Knights of Rounds. Rex is walking with 4 men, but in an instant, he ends up loosing them, as Sid then hits him before Rex manages to react. Thinking Sid is fast due to an artifact, Rex creates a net around himself, stating that no matter how fast Sid is, the moment he gets caught in his net, he will know. He then turns around and sees that Sid is already inside his net. Sid proceeds attacking Rex and eventually takes him in a classroom with each seat taken by a dead terrorist. As Sid attacks Rex again, he notes that Rex is awesome. Meanwhile, New finds the dead body of Glenn and Marco, who is still alive but knocked out. A moment later, Sid arrives and starts looking for Sherry's tools. New explains that Marco was her betrothed. She then explains that Shadow Garden had infiltrated the academy and are awaiting orders. However, she explains that not being able to use magic is a risk and only the 7 shadows can do it. Currently, only Gamma is in the capital, but this type of mission isn't her fort. Even New herself can only use about half of her power right now. As she continues her report, Sid asks her to help him find some items. After obtaining all the tools, Sid explains he needed them to fine-tune an artifact and that Eye of Avaris is absorbing their magic. Once they fine-tune the other artifact, they can neutralize the Eve of Avaris. Without magic, Iris is unable to do anything and is forced to stay outside the academy. Meanwhile, Sherry fine-tunes the artifact and is ready to head into the tunnels, but before they step into them, Sherry recalls seeing the death of her mother as a child. Lutheran comforted her, stating her mother was a great researcher and offered to take and raise Sherry. As Lutheran supported her mother's research, Sherry is determined to repay him. Sid leaves Sherry head into the tunnels alone. The cult knight wonders why is Rex taking that long. Some of the terrorists then start shooting the students for fun, but Rose tells the students to not do anything as without magic they won't stand a chance. Sherry reaches the auditorium and seeing the cult knight holding the Eye of Avaris, she activates her artifact and disables the magic blocking field. In that moment, Rose attacks one of the terrorists, stating their magic is back and the students start fighting back. As the fight starts, Sid comes from the roof with other Shadow Garden members and engages the terrorists. The cult knight leaves, but activates a system that causes the auditorium and the rest of the school to burst into flames. Iris finally makes a move, but sees the terrorists are dead and the students are outside and okay. She asks Rose what happened and Rose explains that once their magic was back, an organization called Shadow Garden came and killed the terrorists who were also calling themselves Shadow Garden. Sherry couldn't see her father at the auditorium and wonders where is he as she tries to escape the fire. The cult knight burns some books. Sid appears and wonders why Lutheran is dressed like that. The cult knight removes his helmet, revealing he is indeed Lutheran and wonders how Sid knows that, but Sid states it was obvious from the moment he saw him. Sid wonders why he did this. Lutheran explains that once he reached the top of the sword fighting world, but soon he became sick. He easily lost the glory he fought hard to attain and started searching a way to cure his disease and found potential in a certain artifact. He funded Sherry's mother research and eventually found the artifact he longed for. However, Sherry's mother stated the Eye of Avaris was dangerous and wanted to give it to the government for safekeeping. Lutheran then killed Sherry's mother. Sherry didn't see him there and never realized it and continued her mother's research. Sid wonders if Lutheran used Sherry for his selfish reasons and he confirmed. Sid then explains he doesn't care for Sherry and her mother but suggests they start before someone else comes. Sid and Lutheran then face each other, but in an instant Lutheran cuts Sid and he falls through the window. A moment later, Shadow comes. Having experience with strong fighters, Lutheran immediately notes that he knows he is at disadvantage against Shadow. Not wanting to waste time, he pulls out the Eye of Avaris and the control unit artifact and explains that when you combine them, their true value shows. As he does, he starts overflowing with magical energy and feels reborn. Lutheran then starts attacking Shadow. However, Shadow easily blocks his attacks without even moving from his spot. Lutheran decides to get serious and lunges at Shadow, but he ends up cut by him. Angered, Lutheran still continues to attack Shadow and explains that he made sure Shadow Garden are blamed for all of this and they will be hunted by everyone. Shadow finds that hilarious and explains that something small as this won't end his organization, which isn't good or evil but walks on its own path. Shadow is fine taking all the guilt for all crimes but states that won't change anything and they will continue to do what they must. Shadow then disarms Lutheran and proceeds stabbing his limbs. He then recalls how Lutheran stated he killed Sherry's mother and stabs him the same way and kills him. In that moment, Sherry arrives and sees her dead father and starts crying over his body. Shadow notes it's better if he doesn't tell her about her mother and just leaves. Shadow is labeled as enemy to the kingdom and is wanted for mass murder, kidnapping, arson, and robbery. Gamma tells Alpha that Shadow states he will gladly accept the guilt for all crimes, but that won't change anything and they will keep doing what they must. Alpha thought they stood for righteousness, but Shadow doesn't seem to see it that way and they must live up to his resolve. She tells Gamma to assemble the available 7 shadows. The academy gets closed for an earlier summer break. Sherry thanks Sid for his help the other day. She tells him that she decided to go study abroad in Lagos. She needs to do something, but can't do it at the moment with her knowledge and also has no reason to stay here anymore. She wished to get to know Sid better, but Sid tells her they can do that next time. Before leaving, he asks her what she needs to do. After a moment of silence, she tells him it's a secret. The summer breaks start earlier and most students decide to head home. Having nothing to do at home, Sid decides to stay in the dorm, but soon realizes he doesn't have anything to do there either. He soon receives a letter from Alpha telling him about Lindworm. Meanwhile, Epsilon is happy to start her day. She recalls how she was saved by Shadow and obtained slime magic, which allowed her to fight 2 fates. Using the slime magic, she gives herself a larger bust. Beta writes a novel about how Shadow saved a woman from Zen and Griffey, but gets frustrated and decides to take some fresh air. Outside, Beta ends up meeting Epsilon, who states that lately Shadow has been gazing at her at especially her chest. Beta doesn't want to believe it, but Epsilon states that since both have large busts, they are more aware of those sort of glances. Epsilon then teases Beta if she had not received such gazes from Shadow. News Nu then comes and tells them that they have a new directive from Alpha. Iris and Alexia visits Gamma's store to prepare for Alexia's trip to the Sacred Land as a special guest for the goddess's trial. Alexia intends to use the opportunity and speak with Archbishop and looks into dark rumors about corruption and missing orphans. Gamma meets them and introduces herself as Luna. After explaining why they are there, Alexia requests to see some other more common items for everyday use, which won't be exactly for her, but it won't be a gift to someone either. Gamma then realizes what she means and shows her some panties and thongs, as they barely cover anything and the men like them. Iris is against it, but Alexia likes them and is confident she will look good in them. She ends up trying them and manages to convince Iris to let her buy them. After the terrorist attack, Rose heard that Sid is alive and rushed to find him. She found him covered in bandages and states he must have survived and caused a miracle by his deep love to her. She accepts his love, and as he saved her, she will give him her heart. Later, Sid and Rose are traveling together in a train towards the Sacred Lands, with Rose clinging to him. As it will take them 2 more days until they arrive, Sid feels his decision to take the train as a background character was a mistake, and he could have run there faster. Rose guesses that Sid is there to take on the goddess's trial. Sid is not sure but guesses that Alpha sent him for that and confirms it. Rose then explains that those that receive the goddess blessings may even marry a princess, and if he gets it, she will speak with her father about the young brave man. She still can't tell anyone about them, but believe that if they work hard, they will have a happy future. Reaching Lindworm, Sid sees some keychains of a sword piercing a left demonic arm. Rose explains that according to the legend, here Olivier cut off the left arm of the demon Diablos. Somewhere within the nearby mountains are the ruins known as the Sanctuary, where it's said that Diablo's left arm is sealed. Walking around, Rose notices a signing event of the author Nasum. Rose is a big fan of hers and they line up. She explains how original her works are and how diverse and imaginary they are. Sid then checks some of her books and sees titles like Asherella, Starets of Trap Wars, One Purse, Dragon Bowl, etc. He quickly realizes they are plagiarized and guesses that someone else had reincarnated like him and lines up to find out who it is. To his surprise, he sees Beta is Nasum, who used his wisdom to get herself famous. Sid recalls that Beta told him she loves literature, so he told her a few stories from his past life. He thought she was going to use them as an inspiration to come up with a cool story, but she ended up stealing them. Beta signs a book and gives it to him, stating it contains all the details of the mission. Rose shows her book to Sid, saying that Nasum wrote her name in it. She wonders what Nasum wrote to Sid, but are surprised to see it's written in ancient language. Rose nouns a bit, but can't read it. She wonders why she wrote it like that, and Sid guesses it's because it's cool. Alpha is next to Archbishop Drake's dead body and wonders what he was hiding, that they even kill a man of his high status. Sid notices a man running on a rooftop and stops him. The man attacks him, but Sid easily blocks. Epsilon then shows up and kills the man. She tells Sid that the target was eliminated by the cult's executioner. They got his henchman, but the executioner has gone into hiding. They will be moving to Plan B. Sid informs her that he will be proceeding with his own plans. One of the things Sid likes is hot springs. While in Lindworm, he goes to a hot spring. Unexpectedly, Alexia is already there too. He wonders why she is in Lindworm, and she explains she is a special guest for the goddess trial. Alexia asks Sid the same question, and Sid explains that a friend invited him, telling him that there is a fun event. Alexia expected Sid to be ogling her, but he isn't even looking at her. Sid notes that he tends to not look at people at hot springs so that they all feel more comfortable while bathing, although he would appreciate if she stops ogling his Excalibur. The new acting Archbishop Jack Nelson cancels the audit with Alexia, explaining that she was there investigating the previous Archbishop, but he is now dead and they will be investigating his death. The goddess trial is starting and Alexia is sitting next to Beta in her Natsum Kafta personality. Seeing her body, Alexia is annoyed at how like Natsum is and guesses that such types like her are the most corrupt on the inside. At the same time, Beta looks at Alexia and is annoyed by her as she used Sid and also thinks that Alexia is corrupt on the inside. The trial starts and the first contender is from Oriana Kingdom, Top Batharius. 2 people from the audience sitting behind Sid explain that if a warrior is summoned, you can't leave the barrier around the arena until one of them is defeated. Top challenges a warrior, but no one comes out. After him comes next Tinline from Midgard Knight Order, but no warriors comes to face him too. Sid really wants to go with Shadow and show his skills, making people wonder who he is. Next is Still Ain't Happen from Logos Vigilant Corps. However, he and many more are unable to summon anyone. Sid is getting bored and hopes the trial ends soon, as after all that only Anaros managed to summon an ancient warrior. In that moment, the announcer reveals the next challenger is from Midgard Academy for Dark Knights, Sid Kajanu. Bored, Sid states that name sounds like a background character name, but then realizes it's his name. Sid wonders if he should come out, but if he do so, the ancient warriors are usually matching the strength strength of those that come out, and it may be revealed he is quite strong. But if he refuses, if the academy hears that, he may get expelled. Sid decides to use option 3. He creates a light above the arena to distract the people and then jumps in as Shadow. A person then appears after Shadow, shocking Jack as he didn't activate any summons. Beta recognizes the person as Aurora, the Witch of Calamity. However, there isn't much information about her due to the chaos and destruction that came after her. Beta asks Jack if he can tell her more about Aurora and falling for her feminine side. Jack agrees, but states that Shadow is unfortunate to summon her as she is the most powerful witch in all of history. Alexia disagrees, stating that if Aurora came, then Shadow's powers must have reached her level. Shadow and Aurora face each other and smile in excitement. As they start fighting, they are both enjoying their battle. Initially, Shadow is just observing and dodging all of Aurora's attacks. He really enjoys but sees that Aurora can't use her full power and then defeats her with a single slash, noting that he wished he could have fought her at her full strength. Shadow then leaves, shocking everyone that he won. The barrier then breaks and a magic door appears in the middle of the arena. Sid feels he has done a good job and people will talk about Shadow and forget about Sid. A magical door then appears next to him. He moves away, but the door follows him. Realizing he won't be able to escape it, he decides to enter. Another door appeared in the middle of the arena. Nelson wonders if the sanctuary responded to Shadow and explains that the door appears to those who are worthy to pass through it. The door starts opening and Nelson gives orders to remove the citizens and that the trial is cancelled. He then tries to make Alexia and the rest leave, but Shadow Garden appears led by Alpha. She asks Alexia and Rose to not do anything until the door is closed and then enters the door. Epsilon had defeated Nelson's guards and states he will be coming with them inside the gate. Nelson refuses and calls his guard Venom to kill Epsilon. He attempts to cut Epsilon, but the slash ends up cutting her fake slime breasts. Not wanting to be exposed, Epsilon manages to reattach them and quickly defeats Venom. She then asks Nelson if he saw anything, but Nelson states he didn't see anything. Epsilon then grabs him and jumps into the door. Other Shadow Garden members take Beta as hostage and get in the door as well. The door starts to close, but Alexia and Rose jump in as well. Alexia and Rose are transported to where Alpha is. Alexia states she tripped and fell into the door, but Alpha doesn't care and tells her that it's fine. Alpha explains that this is where the hero Olivier cut the Diablo's left arm and they sealed it. They came to learn more about the cult, but know that Nelson won't talk. Alpha then shows her face, which is the same as Olivier. Nelson then realizes she was a possessed elf, but as she wasn't compatible, she should have been dead. Alpha states they know the truth behind Olivier and the possessed. They suspect that the cult goal isn't just reviving the demon and states they should proceed to see for themselves. Alpha then activates the big door and opens it. Sid enters a room where Aurora is and wonders if she summoned him. Aurora states she didn't, but notes they had a fun fight. She wonders how he got here and Sid explains a door showed up and didn't stop following him. He wonders how they can leave, but Aurora states her memory is incomplete and doesn't have any memories of ever leaving. Sid then decides to head back from where he came, but Aurora stops him and asks him what she is wearing and if he can help her. Sid notes it's straitjacket. Sid then frees her and Aurora states since they have the same goal of leaving this place, they should work together. She explains she knows how to free herself and that the sanctuary is a memory prison created from ancient battles. If they go to its center and destroy its magical core, then she will be free. She also notes that they can't use magic and if they try, the magic will be absorbed. Sid agrees and wonders what she will do once she is free, and Aurora states she will vanish into nothing. Alpha and the group explore the facility and Alpha explains that this is the memories of the hero Olivier. Long ago, the cult gathered orphan children and used them for experiments. Most of the children ended up dying and a small group of girls survived. Meanwhile, Sid and Aurora see a memory of young Aurora who is crying. Aurora states that to move forward, they need to end this memory. She slaps the young Aurora, telling her that crying won't change anything, and soon the memory shatters. Alpha explains that Olivier was one of the compatible children and they implanted Diablo cells in her. Nelson states they didn't have a choice as they needed power to fight the demon. Alpha proceeds explaining that once Olivier matured, she was given a mission to extract new cells from Diablos. Olivier remained obedient, believing that if she does her mission, it will lead to people living in peace. But no matter how many parts she cut, the demon still lived. The cult used powerful artifacts to immobilize the left arm and gain more Diablo cells. They were able to create red pills, but its side effects techniques were too strong and not what the cult wanted. They were able to make pills that will grant tremendous power and ageless body. Alpha points to a man in the memory and to Nelson. Alexia and the rest realize it's the same man. Nelson reveals they call the drug beads of Diablos. Alpha states it had two flaws and one of them is the hair loss. Nelson then denies it, explaining that he lost his hair due to stress as he was surrounded by idiots who made him do all the work since he has a mortal body. Alpha then reveals the first flaw is that they need to take the beads once a year or the effect will disappear. The second flaw is that they can only produce small amounts, and Nelson reveals it's 12 per year. Alpha guesses that's why the Knights of Rounds contain only 12 members. They have not perfected the beads and believe the key to that is the demon's arm and the hero's descendants with Olivia's blood. She asks Nelson, calling him the 11th of the rounds, if she is correct. Nelson confirms and states he is Nelson the Avaricious. He buffs himself, but in that moment, Delta stabs him from behind and throws him down into the water. Nelson comes out of the water, breaking the memory and separating them into groups. As he faces Alpha and Delta, he multiplies himself. Delta easily cuts down Nelson's copies, but feels something is wrong. Nelson explains that the closer they are to the center of the sanctuary, the more of their power is drained. Alpha adds that at the same time, the closer is Nelson to the center, he gains more power. Nelson was hoping to get even closer, but states this far is enough to be able to defeat them. Sid and Aurora reach another memory, a battlefield with many casualties. They find young Aurora crying again, and Aurora takes Sid's sword, wanting to kill her to end the memory. However, the dead return to life and start attacking them. Aurora explains that the sanctuary is rejecting them. Sid wonders what will happen if Aurora dies, and she guesses she will return in the first room where they met. Epsilon's group find a sick person, but as it goes through Epsilon, the person disappears. Epsilon then explains that it probably was a memory that reacted to them and materialized. They find an archive with information about the possessed and realize this could have happened to them too if they didn't met Shadow. Ada had created Polaroid cameras based on information from Shadow, and they take pictures of the information. Sid and Aurora are easily defeating the zombies, but as more are coming, Sid goes and kills the young Aurora, ending the memory. The two then reach the center of the sanctuary. Meanwhile, even though she is losing power, Delta is obliterating Nelson, who is shocked by her power. Aurora tells Sid that they need to destroy the magic core, which is on the other side of the door. Sid considers cutting the chains and the door, but feels the sword will break. Aurora notes there should be a key. There is a sword in front of the door, and Aurora explains it's written on it that it can cut the chains. Looking at it, Sid is sure he won't be able to pull it out from the ground. As he attempts and can't pull it out, he confirms, stating it must be drawn out by the Chosen One. Aurora then sees a sign stating that the Holy Sword can only be drawn by direct descendants. Aurora is surprised that Sid managed to decipher the magical inscription that fast. As there is no other way to open the door, the two then sit down. Watching Delta fight Nelson, Alexia wonders if she is really working with Shadow. She explains that Delta's fighting style is totally different than the sophisticated techniques that he used. As Delta defeats another close of Nelson, the memory breaks and Nelson is surprised she managed to defeat over 100 copies without even breaking a sweat. Alpha states that even if he was able to create 100 copies, they'd all still have one brain and he couldn't control them all that well. Nelson then sees a statue of Olivia and calls for Olivia to come. Olivia comes out, but at the same time Epsilon joins Alpha and states they are done with the investigation and can leave. Nelson is surprised that they are running away, but Alpha explains their objective is to cut off the source of power and now know how the sanctuary defenses work, so they will be returning again. As Alpha and the rest leave, Nelson starts wondering what to say to the rest and guesses he will explain that he lured them here to expose their identities and that with Alpha's blood they can perfect the beads. He then gets a notification that someone is in the sanctuary center. Sid asks Aurora if she wants to disappear. Aurora explains that once the core is destroyed, she will be free and that this is a prison of memories that repeat into eternity. Sid tells her to wait a bit and soon things will work out. Sid expects the protagonist to show up and be able to pull out the sword. However, Nelson appears and Sid wonders if it's one of those scenarios where the bad guy comes first and tries to stop the protagonist. Sid sees Olivia and that she has the same face as Alpha. Nelson then sends Olivia at them and Sid goes to face her, knowing that she is quite strong. Olivia attacks Sid, who blocks her attacks, but she sends him flying everywhere and ends up breaking his sword. Nelson wonders why is Sid smiling and Sid realizes he indeed is smiling. Olivia attacks again and manages to injure Sid, who notes that a battle without conversation is tedious and that she doesn't have a heart and isn't answering any of his questions. Nelson doesn't understand what he is talking about and orders Olivia to finish him off. Aurora jumps in and asks him to stop. Even though she doesn't remember it well, she knows that no human can defeat Olivia. She tells Sid he have done enough and gave her more new memories that she could have asked. Nelson laughs at her, noting that without magic, she can't do anything, but if she agrees to help him, he will spare Sid. Sid interrupts them, stating that he doesn't need help and they shouldn't assume he will lose. Annoyed, Nelson orders Olivia to kill him and she jumps in and stabs him. Sid, who has been keeping his right eye closed for a while, opens it, stating he got them. Olivia stabs Sid, but he grabs her and bites her neck, ripping it and defeating her. Nelson wonders how is Sid still alive after being stabbed, and Sid explains that if you protect your vital organs and arteries, it's easy to survive a stabbing. Nelson explains he is surprised to see Olivia getting defeated by a kid with no magic, but states she was just a copy. With the amount of magic he has in the center of the sanctuary, he summons countless copies of Olivia. Several attack Sid, but he opens his right eye and defeats them using his magic. Nelson is surprised he is able to use magic. Sid explains that he just tempered with the magic until it was too solid to be absorbed. It took him some time, but it's something simple. Nelson can't believe that's possible and orders the Olivia copies to kill him. Sid fights them, but as his wound continues to bleed, he notes the playtime is over. However, Sid is unaffected and finishes his spell. Aurora is surprised by the amount of magic he has. The explosion obliterates all Olivia's, along with the chain door and everything else. Sid wakes up with Aurora by his side. She is surprised that he survived being stabbed in the heart, and Sid explains that he used magic to move his heart to the other side. Aurora starts disappearing and confesses that she was the one that called him there. She notes she lied for other things as well, but Sid is fine with it. Aurora states that for a long time she wanted to fade away and forget everything, but now has a memory she doesn't want to forget and thanks Sid. Before completely disappearing, Aurora tells Sid what to do if he ever met the real her. Alexia feels frustrated being weak and unable to do anything. She wants to start an organization with Rose and Beta and look up for information and decide what to do. Beta states that they have no precise plan, but both Rose and Beta agree to form a team. Epsilon reports to Alpha that the sanctuary has been obliterated, the holy sword vaporized, along with the magical core. Alpha notes that was the simplest and the most effective solution and congratulates Shadow. Epsilon also reveals that Beta is working with Alexia and may infiltrate her inner circle. Epsilon also confirms their theory that Aurora has another name, the Demon Diablos. A man tries to convince Gamma to buy a prime property in Madlid and open her shopping center there. Gamma isn't sure at first, but as one of her employees tells her that they found petroleum, Gamma decides to buy every property in that street and explains she wants to redevelop the city and make it the greatest city in Velgalta. Alpha recalls an earlier time with Sid, when they made their base of operation. She explains they need to start training the girls as they will be facing the cult and need to enhance their individual strength. Alexia explains to Iris that the Archbishop was part of the cult. To be able to keep the sanctuary a secret, they need some big organization, and Alexia wants to investigate the divine teaching. Iris had suggested the same thing to their father, but he told them to not do anything. However, Iris feels that if she wins the Bushin Festival again, she will have more backing and support of the people, and their father will have to listen to her. Alexia wonders if the cult or Shadow Garden won't get involved, but Iris is sure of her sword skills. Iris wonders why Alexia went into the sanctuary. Alexia then acts a bit dumb and excuses himself and leaves. Iris notes to herself that her Crimson Knights lost their strongest members and probably won't be able to rebuild them. The Night Order was supporting her, but she guesses they hate her as she took their strongest members and let them die. Rose is training. However, she feels strange and demonic possession appears on her chest. The Bunchin Festival is starting and strong warriors all over the world start gathering. Seeing them, Sid wants to also enter the tournament to act weak and all, but defeat its opponents and shocks everyone how strong he is. Sid visits Gamma and asks her to help him with a disguise and enter the Bunchin Festival. Gamma wonders why, but Sid states he can't tell her. Gamma uses a special slime gel that will help him conceal his face and shape it how they want. She shows him pictures of how he wants to look, and Sid notes he wants to look weak. Gamma then suggests Mundane Man, a lazy dark knight with no skill. He was disowned by his noble family and died 5 years ago an unremarkable and unremarked death. Sid agrees and Gamma turns him into Mundane. Sid then changes his posture to look like his new character. Anaros, who managed to summon an ancient warrior at the goddess trial, sees Sid in his mundane character. Looking at his cheap gear and sickly body, she states he is an amateur and warns him to not participate in the Bunchin Festival. Sid tells her to not judge a book by its cover and that he doesn't need her help. He walks away smiling that his disguise works. He is immediately stopped by Quentin, who tells him he needs to take her advice. Quentin explains he fought several times at Bunchin festivals In each there are weaklings like Sid, so it's better if he just go home. Sid states that he is at least stronger than Quentin. That angers Quentin, who picks up Sid and punches him into an alley. Sid still states he is weak, angering more Quentin. Sid notes there are several moves he can do right now and defeat Quentin, but he has no intention of fighting yet and leaves Quentin to beat him up. Anna Rose eventually stops Quentin. She apologizes to Sid, and while she could have stopped the fight at any moment, she decided to let Quentin beat him up so that Sid quits and don't get injured more at the festival. Sid leaves, which surprises Anna Rose that he isn't hurt. She introduces herself and asks Sid about his name, and Sid reveals it's Mundane Man. Sid meets with Skel Etoll, who wants to make bets and win some money on the tournament. He explains that the tournament will start with prelims and only the strongest will proceed to the main tournament. He also tells him who are the favorites. As Sid wants to show his powers only at the end, he wonders on how to defeat the stronger opponents without revealing his powers. As he leaves, he meets Rose, who explains she got friends with Alexia and Nassim Kafka. She also reveals that she is going to meet her father and he will be introducing her to her fiancé Perv Ashat. Rose explains that she is a princess from a land of art and culture, but she disappointed and betrayed a lot of people when she decided to become a knight. When she was young, she met a hero and was inspired by him to pick up the sword. She still refuses to abandon her ideals, and that may cause her to betray more people. She asks Sid if he will keep believing in her, and Sid confirms it. Sid and Skel are watching fight. Skel explains that he is gathering data so that he can make better bets. He continues to explain how he can calculate the odds for better bets, but he will need some money to make the odds 100%. Sid ignores him. Goldo Kimeki shows behind Skel, stating he finds that fascinating. Skel recognizes him and gets excited. Goldo explains he also tabulates data as it helps him win. Next match is Gonzalez Machombru versus Mundane Man. Sid states he needs to take a dump and leaves. Goldo decides to analyze the fight and explains you can get general idea of the fighter's strength before the fight. Gonzalez has a glint in his eyes and arrogant smile, which means he is a tough fighter with a lot of experience. His battle powers is 1364. On the other hand, Mundane Man is astoundingly inept, and Goldo wonders how he made it to the third round. With his weak face, build, and aura, his battle power is 33. Goldo expects Gonzalez to win in less than a second. Skel is impressed with the analyze. A second after the fight starts, Gonzalez falls down. People assume that Gonzalez tripped and fell, and Mundane is announced as winner, which disappoints the crowd. Anna Rose, however, saw how Mundane landed 2 quick punches on the chin. Goldo acts like he also knew this could happen and Mundane to win. He tells Skel that you can win by betting on those with higher battle power or find the weak ones and bet on their opponents. As Goldo leaves, Sid returns and Skel asks him to give all of his money so that he can bet on Goldo, but Sid refuses. Early in the morning, Skel knocks on Sid's door and shows him the newspaper stating that Rose stabbed her fiancé Perv Ashat and ran away.
Alexia and Beta look at Rose's situation. The Oriana Kingdom wants to handle it themselves and ask Migger Kingdom to not get involved. Since Perv Ashat is a son of one of the Oriana Kingdom's dukes, if they arrest Oriana, she will be in serious trouble, but won't be given death penalty due to her royal status. Alexia wants to find Rose before Oriana Kingdom in order to hear her side of the story. However, Beta guesses that Rose may not have told them anything to avoid the possibility of trouble between the kingdom. Alexia understands that, which is why she is pissed as they are sworn allies. Beta will try gathering some more information while Alexia decides to ask her sister for advice. After Alexia leaves, Beta guesses she may give her more info on Perv Ashat, which will keep her occupied and not do something to get in trouble. Beta is informed that Rose made it through the sewers and is into the underground ruins right now. Sid wonders on what to do, but decides to continue his role as Eminence in Shadow. Between the tournament fights, he encounters Beatrix, who smells the scent of Elf on Sid and wonders if he knows Elf. Sid confirms and Beatrix explains she is looking for the daughter of her sister and wonders if Sid had seen someone that looks like her. Sid is immediately reminded of Alpha but denies it. Beatrix then draws her sword to cut Sid's head. Sid realizes that she intends to stop before doing it and acts as a background character, shocked of what just happened. Beatrix then apologizes, stating thought he was stronger, but it seems she is mistaken. Quentin sees Anna Rose and guesses she is here to observe Mundane Man, just like yesterday. He asks her what she thinks of his fight and Anna Rose states his opponent supposedly tripped and lost. Quentin agrees, but is sure that Mundane did something. He couldn't see it, but know that Anna Rose can explain it. Anna Rose explains she couldn't see it all, and didn't expect to see someone faster than her eyes can follow, but she did see his right hand moving. However, what followed was too fast for her to follow. Quentin then guesses he is wrong, that he used some artifact and Mundane didn't break the rules. Anna Rose can't disprove that, but the two are sure that his fight with Goldo Kameki should reveal it. Anna Rose states that Goldo had never lost. She had to fight him 3 times, but Goldo simply don't fight anyone who could possibly beat him and just forfeits. He got his nickname the Unbeaten, but he hates it and uses the Ever Victorious. As the match between Goldo and Mundane is about to begin, Quentin realizes that Anna Rose means that either Goldo couldn't see Mundane's true strength or Mundane is cheating. The match starts and Goldo rushes at Mundane. He swings his sword, but Mundane cracks his neck and dodges it. Goldo then feels how Mundane draws his sword and cuts him, but Mundane slowly draws it and waits. Quentin is surprised he managed to dodge it, but he couldn't see what happened. Anna Rose explains that Mundane cracked his neck and avoided the attack. Quentin can't believe such a coincidence can happen, but Anna Rose wonders if it's not coincidence. She barely could even see it, which isn't something a normal human should be able to do. Goldo tells Mundane that he doesn't like him. He had 1 in a million chance to beat him, but he didn't use it. Angry for humiliating him, Goldo decides to get serious and creates a golden dragon from his magical power. He rushes at Mundane, but Mundane sneezes and blows away the dragon and Goldo, which ends up defeating him. Anna Rose notes that Goldo is stronger than she expected, and if he fought more often with stronger knights, he would have become quite a good one. Quentin wonders what did Mundane do, and Anna Rose explains that if she saw right, he sneezed. The moment he did it, his sword also swung down and Goldo crashed into it. Quentin finds that unrealistic and leaves, stating that if Mundane keeps winning, he will eventually face him and show him what he is made of. Anna Rose wonders if she can move like Mundane and starts cracking her neck and sneezing. Iris gives Perv Ashat the security plan for the Bushin Festival, but he doesn't feel it needs more security. Iris states he looks good and Perv agrees, saying that the news story exaggerated and guesses that Migger worries that easily because of Alexia's kidnapping. He heard that Iris personally went looking for her and he intends to follow the same and to have Oriana solve their family problems themselves. Mundane easily defeats Quentin. People are surprised on what is going on and can't figure out how Mundane keeps winning and if it's safe to bet for him or not. Mundane proceeds into the main tournament, where he will be facing Anna Rose. Back in the tunnel, Anna Rose faces Mundane and tells him she misjudged his strength, but she had seen all of his moves and he must not assume he can win the same ways against her. Mundane smiles and removes one of his armor plates, which makes a hole in the ground as it falls due to its weight. Mundane explains that the weights are holding him back, but now playtime is over. Anna Rose tells him to not assume he won already and shows him that not only he can crack his neck. Mundane moves past her, wondering what she was trying to do. Sid imagines on what he will do in the arena and how to reveal he is much more powerful. Skell comes knocking on his door, stating he has a plan on how to get rich fast. He shows that Rose has a reward for turning her in or giving information about her location and tries to convince Sid to work with him and find her so that he can get rich. Sid sees that his sister is visiting and decides to avoid her. He accepts Skell's proposal and uses the window to leave. While walking around town, Sid hears someone playing a piano and notes it's someone good. He recalls how in his previous life he was forced to learn to play piano. He would have rather trained for his plan to become Eminence in Shadow, but in time he found out that piano is quite cool. However, as he recognizes the music, he wonders if it should exist in this world and decides to see who it was playing the piano, since it may be another reincarnated person. Sid is surprised to see it's Epsilon, who, like Gammon, is using what he told her to become famous. After her performance, Sid asks if that was the Moonlight Sonata, and Epsilon confirms, saying from all the pieces he taught her, this one is her favorite. Epsilon reveals that received rewards for her music composition and had gained connection with influential people. Sid realizes that she plagiarized all the music he showed her. He asks her if she knows where is Rose hiding. Epsilon states that Beta is working on that case, but she heard she is hiding in the tunnels under the royal capital. Sid thanks her and leaves, but on his way, he notices the piano and smiles. Beta shares some information with Alexia on the suspicion that Perv Ashat is working with a cult. They head down the tunnels under the royal capital. Beta notes it will be hard to provide evidence for Perv involvement with the cult. Iris had told Alexia that the king of Oriana didn't seem affected by Rose's actions. Alexia is also sure that if they continue to do nothing like her father suggests, the cult will eventually cause lots of problems for the kingdom. Alexia explains that they are heading to the underground passages as there is a chance that Rose had used them to escape. Beta notes that it's a maze down there and wonders how they can leave, but Alexia states they will just return the way they came. Rose recalls how she met her father and Perv the other day. When she saw her father, the king, she knew something was wrong with him, and then saw Perv and the guards' cunning smiles. She drew her sword and attacked Perv, but the guards then yelled that she went mad and called for some guards. Rose believes she made a rational decision, but later realizes it wasn't. Even if she managed to kill Perv, he is just one of the cult, whose roots have already too deep within the Oriana kingdom. Perv told her to turn herself in before the Bushin Festival, or he will have her father kill one of his guests. Rose now wonders if it's best to turn herself in, as that way it may avoid a war. She recalls her time with Sid, but as her possession gets worse, she feels that marrying Sid and living with him would have been a dream anyway. Rose hears the Moonlight Sonata and starts following the music. Eventually, she finds Shadow, who is playing on the piano. As he finishes, Rose explains she had heard the Moonlight Sonata many times, but without a doubt, this was the best performance she heard. Shadow asks her what she hoped to accomplish, and Rose states she wanted to protect them, but couldn't do anything. Shadow wonders if this is her end and if she intends to put the sword down. He notes that if she has desire, he will give her power. Rose accepts, as there are things she wants to do and protect. Shadow gives her power and heals her possession. He tells her that true strength lies not in one's power, but in one's way of being. After Shadow leaves, some members of the cult show up and Rose defeats them easily. Feeling the burst of magic, Alexia and Beta run towards it and find Rose. Rose states she obtained power and will follow the path she believes in. Alexia has questions, but Rose refuses to say anything, not wanting to drag Alexia into this. As Rose keeps refusing to say anything, Alexia draws her sword, stating she will make her talk this way. The two start fighting, but Rose defeats Alexia. Rose leaves Alexia to Beta, who states that she won't stop Rose. She notes that they are all different, but may have same ideals and their alliance may not have been such a bad idea. In the evening, Sid returns home. However, he is surprised to see his sister still waiting for him. Claire chokes Sid, explaining that she was getting more and more angry each second she was waiting for him. She was also angry that he keeps breaking his promises, but hands him a ticket to the Bushin Festival, telling him be there and watch her as she is replacing Princess Rose. Sid goes to the Bushin Festival and finds out that the ticket his sister gave him isn't an ordinary reserved seat ticket, but a hyper VIP seating. Going to his seat, he sees Iris Midgar and assumes he got it wrong. Iris realizes he is Claire's brother and tells him he is in the correct seat, while also explaining she plans taking Claire to her personal order when she graduates. Iris also apologizes to Sid for the Xenon Griffey incident. That draws people's attention, which worries Sid as it's not normal for a background character like him. Some students ask Iris if some competitor caught her eye, and Iris explains it's Anaros, but Iris herself still intends to win the tournament. Sid wonders if there is someone else who caught her eye, suggesting Mundane Man, but the two students explain that he is just fast and lucky, with no skill. Sid gets excited that he cultivated Mundane's reputation to perfection. Iris explains that there is one more person who got her eye, an elf who was also the first Bushin Festival champion, although she won't be competing. The two students realize Iris is talking about Beatrix, but note that she haven't showed her face in public in over a decade. Sid recalls Beatrix, and that he knew she was strong, but didn't know she was famous. Sid then excuses himself and leaves. He feels the presence of someone strong, but is unable to reveal he knows it as he is currently a background character. Beatrix then shows after him and Sid acts surprised. Beatrix wonders if he was ignoring her, but Sid denies it. She asks him if he ran into an elf that looks like her, but Sid denies it. Beatrix hopes she can find the one she's looking for, as there are a lot of people coming to the festival. Beatrix has brought too many burgers and gives one to Sid. To return the favor, Sid gives one of his burgers to her. Pervashat takes Sid's seat and explains that his king will be attending the festival tomorrow. He wonders about Iris' father, Klaus Midgar, and Iris explains that he will be also watching from tomorrow. Perv then sees Anaros coming out in the arena. He heard that she is in the middle of a training pilgrimage and would love to invite her to work for his kingdom. Iris also states that a fencer of her caliber would be in use for her kingdom as well. Perv asks her what she thinks of Anaros' opponent, Mundane Man. Iris states she sees him for the first time, but he doesn't look very strong. However, she isn't sure of Anaros' win, as Mundane is a little unnerving, and there is no uncertainty in his eyes, which isn't typical for a weak fighter. The fight between Mundane Man and Anaros start. Anaros immediately closes the distance and starts attacking, but Mundane parries or dodges her attacks. She sees a chance to defeat him and slashes him, but Mundane appears behind her and tells her that was just an after image. Mundane then quickly overpowers her, and Anaros realizes that her only choice is to try and counterattack when he attacks. She waits for him to attack and attempts to counterattack, but Mundane dodges, which makes her realize he was still matching his attack to her and not the opposite. Mundane then slashes and defeats Anaros. Perv states that Iris was right. Iris is surprised that someone as strong as Mundane was unnoticed for that long. Perv states the next round would be Iris versus Mundane and wonders if she is confident that she can beat him. Iris states she can't match his beauty of swordplay, but it's not beauty that determines the winner. If this is all Mundane can do, then he won't be a match for her. However, there is a good chance that he is hiding something, which is why he disguised his stance and technique through the tournament. After leaving, Perv tells his man to investigate Mundane, noting it could be a problem if he is backed by the lawless city. His man wonders if he is part of Shadow Garden, but Perv dismisses it because he is a man and also doubts that Shadow Garden have a reason to make a scene at the Bushin Festival. Elsewhere, Anaros tells Mundane that she was completely defeated and explains that she left her country to become stronger and thanks him for the lesson. She wonders how he became that strong, and Mundane states he abandoned everything in pursuit of strength. Sid had accomplished 70% of his plan at the Bushin Festival. He then wonders on how to finish it and after defeating Iris to just disappear, stating his work is done. Or he wonders if he should get the evil route and act like an assassin from a shadowy organization. He returns home but finds Claire waiting for him again and wondering if he had fun watching her match. Sid then guesses he is dead. Iris is practicing and recalls her path from being a young kid who won her fight battle to who is she now. She is determined to get results and prove that she has power to stand up against the divine teachings. Sid starts to like the VIP seating as the maids get him anything he wants free of charge. Iris sits next to him, guessing he is there to cheer for his sister. She notes that he is drinking coffee and states she likes the smell, but doesn't like bitter flavors. Sid explains that if you put tons of milk and sugar, every kind of coffee will taste the same. Iris decides to try it and finds it the milk coffee delicious. Moments later, Iris hears the guards stopping a woman with a sword and wants she to give it to them. Iris then sees Beatrix and explains she invited her. Realizing who Beatrix is, everyone get excited and gather around her. Beatrix uses the chance and asks them if they have seen her niece, but no one has seen her. They also ask her if some competitor caught her eye, and Beatrix states it's Sid. People are surprised as Sid isn't really that good and his sister is much better, and some start to question if Beatrix is really that good. Pervashat drugs King Oriana again, but is annoyed how the drug makes his odor sweet and tells his men to cover it with a perfume. Perv is sure that Rose will come to save her father and notes that since she showed signs of possession, she will also become prime material for the cult's experimentation. If Rose doesn't show up, Perv intends to use King Oriana to kill King Midgar. That will result in a war between the kingdoms and the destruction of Oriana Kingdom, and Perv will lose his status, but he doesn't really care. Perv plans to make the new king of Midgar his puppet and guesses the best time to move is during Iris' match. However, he is worried about Mundane Man as he couldn't find anything about him and worries that he could be quite dangerous. Perv is also worried what Shadow Garden may do and that they may be working with Rose. He goes into the VIP seating, and as he passes by Beatrix, she states that he and the king stink. Perv gets angry and orders to take her but Iris stops him and explains she is her guest and it's Beatrix, the war goddess. Perv then realizes who she is and that she may have awakened the hero's blood. Beatrix apologizes and Perv does the same. He takes his seat and starts to worry about Beatrix, guessing he need to eliminate her as well. He also wonders if he will be able to assassinate the king of Midgar, but states it will all go normal if Rose shows up. Claire wins her fight and the Iris heads out for a match against Mundane Man. As their fight starts, Iris feels that she loses her head and jumps backwards in fear. She is surprised at what she did and gathers herself and stands up. In that moment, she feels she is losing her leg and realizes that the entire arena is in Mundane's striking range. Meanwhile, Rose gets close to the VIP seating, but sees dead cult members. Beta and other Shadow Garden appear behind her and tells her that she can proceed and fulfill her mission. Iris keeps feeling that she is losing limbs from Mundane's attacks. She realizes she feels that due to his look in his eyes, and each time he slightly shifts his gravity center, which means it's done by his strength and not by an artifact. The crowd start to get disappointed at Iris as she keeps backing up and feel that she is scared. Iris gets angry and attacks. Mundane then pushes her sword away and grabs her by the throat and takes her down. Placing his sword at her neck, he wonders what is wrong as they are just starting. Perv can't believe that Iris lost without being able to make a single move. Seeing Mundane, Beatrix states she wants to fight him. Rose then shows up and apologizes to her father, stating she made mistakes and will likely make one more, but she decided to follow the path she believes in. King Oriana then forgives all of her sin. Perv is surprised as he didn't instruct him of saying that. Rose cries and jumps at Perv, who then uses the king as a shield. However, Rose proceeds and stabs him. In his last moments, the king tells Rose that he loves her. Perv is shocked at how easily she killed her father and gets angry. He then sees Rose holding her blade against her neck and orders his men to stop her. Mundane then comes from the window, asking if that's the choice Rose made, while cutting down Perv's men. Mundane then states it's time to reveal himself and turns to Shadow. Rose calls him Stylish Bandit Slayer. Seeing him fight, she was reminded of her past, when Sid had saved her from some bandits. Since that day when she saw his fencing, she decided to become Fencer herself. When Sid had killed all the bandits who kidnapped Rose, she asked him who he was. As Sid was still training back then, he is just a Stylish Bandit Slayer. Rose is surprised to learn that Shadow was Stylish Bandit Slayer, and even at that young age, he wasn't afraid and fought against evil. Shadow tells her that her fight isn't over. Rose then stands up and leaves. Perv wants to stop her, but all of his men are already defeated by other Shadow Garden members. Beatrix then states she will do it and jumps at Shadow. As they clash swords, Perv uses the chance to escape. Shadow is fighting Beatrix, however. He starts getting behind her with easy, while she barely manages to notice him in time and block his attacks. Iris shows up and states she wants to join the fight. She draws a blade and Shadow realizes it's a mithril blade with ancient runes, surprising him that she intends to use an artifact. Iris gets annoyed and turns the blade into a large fire sword and swings at Shadow. Shadow easily dodges and states that it has good visuals and is more fit for a festival spectacular. Beatrix then attacks him and Shadow continues her fight with her, with Iris joining Beatrix to fight Shadow. Shadow then takes two crowbars and blocks both Iris and Beatrix attacks. noting that crowbars indeed have potential. As they keep on fighting, they end on top of a train, where Shadow tells them to be careful to not fall. Meanwhile, Rose had escaped the stadium and wonders on what to do next. Alpha shows up and tells her that she has two choices: to continue fighting alone or to fight alongside Shadow Garden. Rose asks Alpha if they intend to save Oriana Kingdom, but Alpha explains won't be doing anything assist her as she is right now, and if she wishes to save her kingdom, she must show her worth. Thinking for a moment, Rose decides to join Shadow Garden. While they fight, Beatrix wonders if she and Shadow have met before. Shadow states he remembers powerful opponents, but wonders if they are strong enough for him to remember them. He jumps into the river and using magic, he controls the water and shoots at it, but notices that magic doesn't flow that good in ordinary water. He kicks Iris into the river, but as Beatrix attacks him, she manages to break his crowbar. As they keep fighting, they reach a tower, where Shadow gets behind Beatrix, but she blocks it easily, noting that she got used to his attack. Shadow congratulates her, stating that in sword skill, they are almost equal. However, her use of magic isn't as good. Iris then comes attacking, but Shadow blocks her attack with his fist, stating that he can't be defeated with borrowed power. Iris tells Beatrix that she will immobilize him even if it costs her her life, and then Beatrix can take him down. Iris attacks Shadow. As she swings her sword, she lets it go and attempts to grab Shadow. However, Shadow kicks her in the chin with his knee. Beatrix finishes charging her attack and attacks. In that moment, she knocks Shadow's sword, but he dodges her attack and then grabs and slams her over Iris and then stomps both of them. Shadow attempts to leave, but the girls manage to stand up, and Iris tells him that by now every knight in the city should have been mobilized. He has turned the whole kingdom into his enemy and there isn't a place he can run to. Shadow starts laughing maniacally and then states he ain't running as there is no reason to. He activates his power, covering most of the city, and states that the playtime is over. Seeing his power, the girls are left stunned. Shadow starts casting his eye and atomic attack, but stops before the enemy leaves. Seeing that, Iris drops on her knees and cries. Sherry read on the newspaper that the demon Shadow was chased away by Iris and Beatrix. Rose is still missing after she killed her father. Beatrix leaves the city, disappointed she couldn't find the one she was looking for. She tells Iris to not take her defeat too serious, as there are many things mortals can't defeat. As Midgar Kingdom is looking for Shadow, Beta guesses that was Shadow's plan to keep them occupied with himself and not get involved with the things happening in Oriana Kingdom. Since Shadow is actively involving himself, they decide to hurry up and tie up the loose ends and send more personnel to investigate the lawless city and keep a close eye on the major corporate alliance. With the new school term having started, Sid wonders where is Skell. Poe explains he took a long-term job. Poe regrets that he was outside the city when the demon Shadow appeared. Shadow covered the capital in magic, which must have frightened a lot of girls who would then have needed reassurance. Rose and Alpha reach the Kajanu domain. Alpha then explains they are heading past the mountain and deeper into the woods. Rose is surprised as magical beasts infest the region. Alpha explains that when Shadow visited the mountains, he battled the Mist Dragon. The dragon lost and dubbed Shadow ruler of this realm and bathed him in dragon's breath. When they reach their destination in the forest, Alpha explains that this is the ancient city Alexandria, Shadow Garden's base of operation. Alpha takes Rose to Lambda and explains that Rose is a new recruit and tells Lambda to train her. Lambda calls 664 and 665 and tells them that she is putting the new recruit in their squad, naming Rose as number 666. Lambda then cuts Rose's clothes, telling her that she is now nobody and is casting away her name, clothes, and everything to become a pure, unadulterated soldier.